Hello and welcome to another in the Mark and Zac, The Outsiders podcast series, which is focusing around the idea of confidence. This is series 5, and we are delighted to have you, as always, alongside us for our show. And please remember, you can always subscribe or download and get hold of your episode that comes out every week. What are we about? I suppose is always a good way to start the podcast. And really, this is a podcast for those of you who feel that you have lost your direction in life and you are just really existing, and it's dawned on you that you've missed out on a whole chunk of your life because you didn't listen to your instincts, your internal voice saying, I am more of this kind of person than the person that is living this life right now. And once you're aware of this, it does start to have an impact on you. So the question really is, what does it cost you by not following your dreams? Are you living on the outside in? Do you feel a sense of disconnect in terms of your life, your work, your social relationships? Do you feel like you belong in society? Do you fit in? No matter how hard you try, you just feel that you are cut adrift from what's going on around you. Well, I'm Mark, and my colleague Zac, who I'm just going to introduce in a second. We've been working on this concept for over a year now in terms of a podcast. And our job really is just to talk about our life experiences and how we've done our best to make the best of that's repeating myself, what we've done to make the best of our situation and reclaim, the life that really we should have been making the most of a long time ago. So that's what we're really about. And we cover topics that relate to this issue every single week. So let me move on and introduce my co-conspirator and colleague, Zac. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. Good to be back. Very excited for this episode. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Yep. Just had a lovely Easter break, and I spent it joyously with my daughter, which was long awaited. And so she came over for a week, and we went about having a lot of fun together and spending that week together quite closely. Introduced to her to a lot of her long lost family that she hasn't met for a while anyway. So that was a great week, and I'm glad we managed to organise that. What did you get up to, Zac?
Well, again, I saw my children as well. Actually,
Oh.
We spent a day together, and it was very lovely. What did we do? We just sort of pottered around. I took them to that place that doesn't sponsor our podcast with the big M, the big golden arches.
Oh, yes.
Which is always a treat. And my son is a member of their thing, so we managed to get a discount, which is even better. He's a member of their club, whatever it is. I don't know what they do. One of these club cards. So we got a discount. But my two are, my daughter is 20 next week, and my son is 17 and just learning to drive, whereas your daughter is a couple of years younger,
14.
Isn't she?
Yeah, she's 14, but she's turning into a little lady. And I have to say, it was a bit of a shock at the airport because I hadn't seen her for several months. And, I was waiting, sort of the anticipation, the build up at the airport when you're waiting to see someone you haven't seen for a while. And it was quite funny because actually with my phone, I usually have it turned quite down. I don't like to have the phone ringing whenever possible. I know you're the opposite. And anyway, so I was standing at the airport, waiting. And I just thought, maybe I missed something. I picked up the phone and there were 3 calls going, please call me. So I'm on. So I rang her and she said, can you speak to this nice lady, please? And I said, of course. And it was the passport control people wanting to check that I was waiting, which I thought was great. It's nice to know that someone is taking some interest.
Yeah.
But anyway, she came through. And wow, she's a little lady now. It took my breath away. She's sort of about 6 inches taller, carrying her luggage, a suitcase, and we had a nice hug, and it was lovely. Yeah,
Lovely.
So it's really important.
It must be quite an emotional thing, because we come from different perspectives, as we always do in our podcasts. For myself, my children live with their mum. We split up 14 years ago, I think. But they lived close by. My children are about half an hour drive from where I live at the moment. So I've managed to keep, I did the school runs and managed to keep a close connection with them in that sense. Whereas your daughter, Mark, lives abroad, lives where you used to live. So that the distance plays a big part in that. So we're coming at this from two different perspectives. But I suppose from your point of view, the emotion of seeing her after all these years must be quite...
Well, it's not all these years. I have been, after COVID, I managed to get over and see her and everything, of course. But nevertheless, the issue is the disconnection now over time, because obviously, like you, my ex is with her on a daily basis, and I'm not, which is this is the compromise that is made in life when you have to make a choice, but it's not the one I necessarily. That was one I was left with, and so therefore I have to enjoy the time I have, which we do, and that's the thing. We have a strong connection, and I think that's really the theme of our podcast this week: the importance of continuity and relationship building with children. Very, very important. Very integral to me, based on my own childhood, and now fast forwarding with my own child. So I've tried to rectify a few things, despite the hurdle and the obstacles of being separated, or divorced, which was my choice. But ultimately, there are things that need to be mended. There are, along the way, and I think we're going to talk a little bit today about what we've done to ensure this relationship is intact.
Indeed. I think certainly we both share a similarity in that we both made that choice all those years ago. We were in relationships where we were unhappy, and we made a choice to do it. From my point of view, I remember very vividly thinking before I decided to leave, and before I sort of announced it, so to speak, when I was going through the internal discussion, I was very concerned about my children. But I also was very aware that I didn't want them, if I was unhappy in my relationship at the time, but I didn't want them to go through life thinking that they had to stay in a relationship they were unhappy with when they were adults. I mean, then they were only children, but I almost felt like it was important for me to stick to my truth and stick to my decision, however hard that will be. It's almost that philosophical thing where you have to make two bad decisions, but one is worse than the other, but neither one is particularly rosy, but you can get through these situations over time. And that was, to me, was quite important, that I showed them that you can make tough decisions and make them the best of it and make your life better, even if it does hurt people at the beginning.
Yeah, this basically goes back to making bad choices, and I think I'm a little bit harder on it than you are. I think I made a decision based on a weak footing, and that is my bugbear. That's my issue I have to deal with, which was a result of, in my opinion, the lack of real, genuine support I got as a youngster. So I put it down to that. What you're saying, I think, is right, that children should follow what they want to do. I mean, that's definitely true, and make choices along the way. But the idea, I think, you see, what you're saying is if you do something and then you suddenly decide you don't want to do it anymore, it's your right to stop doing it. Well, of course, but I think I'm a little bit harder on that sort of situation. I think the decisions and the foundations should be in place so the decision is the right one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, if things go a little bit pear-shaped or they're not working out according to plan, well, then you have to try and repair that. But to walk away from it, I'm not a big fan of. I think if you make a bad choice or a bad decision, you have to look at what lies underneath that. And I'm not one for, I mean, I've done this. I'm not saying I haven't, but in retrospect, I think we should, wherever possible, say, okay, you made your choice. Now you've got to work with it. And to be honest with you, based on what you've just said, I mean, I just spent 14 years in a relationship, which wasn't like 14 weeks. And then saying, you know, enough, which could have been a smarter move. I don't know. But ultimately, these choices do have implications. And my choice, I think, was, do I want to be there ever present as a father, which deep down I did, but in a better situation. Or do I want to, you know, try wherever possible and get out of this in order that I have a healthy relationship with my daughter, and a better one with myself than feel miserable. But I did sit it out for a long, long time. And in fact, I manifested that, you know, things would change so that I could, because I couldn't see a way out. But anyway, this isn't really what we want to spend too long on today. But in terms of making choices and decisions, I do think we need to have the best foundation for those life choices. And
I think so. We do. I mean, I obviously didn't get married or choose to have children based on a whim. I did it based on a history of a relationship with a woman who was a very loving and caring woman. So it just, people go on in different directions. I think that's where I sort of was coming from. And I think, like you, I chose what I felt was best for me and my children. I wanted them to be happy, ultimately.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, I certainly didn't mean for it to sound like it was a whim. I mean, there's not a whim. I mean, I was also married to somebody I had a relationship with before. But it's not so much that we go off into different directions. I think if you're happy and content with what you're doing and therefore within yourself, then these issues really don't necessarily become one. But if you're not being true to yourself, I think that's where the issues lie. And I think this is what we're trying to do as the podcast. So we both weren't in the right place. Therefore, we couldn't respond accordingly. So Zac, I mean, this is really a question really for the listener and the viewer out there. I don't know if you can relate to our discussion, whether you are also in a similar position or you have been in a similar position, and you feel like you'd like to reach out, communicate, share your ideas or stories with us. As you can see on the banner, there's an email. You can write to us at markandzacintro@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'd most certainly get back to you